So good morning, JC.
Morning.
We always like to share experiences with our owners to help them through the process in a future project. And one of the things that we constantly see that could be a concern or often isn't thought out thoroughly by most architectural and construction teams are the connections of equipment coming over from an existing facility and fitting into the new design and the location, as well as the purchase of new equipment. So I'd like to ask you a couple questions of some of the things that you've experienced throughout the many projects that you've worked on, and see if we can't help them eliminate some of those hurdles.
Sure.
So what are the top 3 or 4 things you look at when you're talking about equipment new and relocated?
Well, let's talk about existing equipment first. The existing equipment, you want to make sure that it will fit in the new space. You want to make sure you go field measure it or have other people measure and give you the proper dimensions, heights, width, the lengths, the door swings, all that, and make sure it fits properly in your new location. You may have to adjust a wall or two to properly fit that and get that to look right, but it's just a couple inches here or there. Definitely got to make sure we have the proper the clearances for all that. Other things is how is the existing equipment connected? Is there any plug and floor drains, trench drains, any type of utilities connected to, any med gas connections? You want to double check and make sure we have all the proper items for those instances for that. Door clearances, if you bring it over, if it swings one way in your existing facility, you might want to switch over a hinge in the new facility if that works out better in the favor for the new facility. Couple items like that for your existing equipment. Now, if we're going to talk about new equipment, it's almost starting from square one. You can go to either Shoreline, Mason, TriStar. They'll all be great resources for you, but everybody needs to double check all the proper dimensions, clearances, and make sure all those will fit properly in the new facility. So, for instance, you want to make sure you have your corridor widths. You got to make sure that the new equipment can fit in. If you order a grooming tub and you can't fit it through the door, that's going to be an issue. You definitely got to make sure that that can happen. Again, your med gas drops for any type of dry tables, wet tables, if those are connecting to the side of them or if they're just going to overhang, you want to take that into consideration. And even your base and flooring, if, for example, again, your wet tables and your dry tables, you got to make sure and coordinate how your flooring is going to come up for that, if it's going to sit on a base, etc. All important decisions to be discussed with your design team, as well as if you have a contractor on board or if it's Minmark, Mason, TriStar, Shoreline. All very important questions to start getting into as a design team.
So are you telling me that the architect should early on in the design go out to the existing facility and measure and coordinate all that existing equipment for location and sizes? Is that what you normally would do?
I would agree to that. That way you have it. The architect and the design team has those field measurements. If there's a lot of equipment coordination for existing equipment, say anything more than a couple banks of cages, I would be highly recommended for the architect design team to come out and measure it and understand it. Okay, well, we can put this in this space here. We just got to shimmy a wall down an inch or two, and that's part of the whole design process, whether it's schematic design, design development. And then if you missed a dimension, which always happens in field dimensioning, so if you missed a dimension, don't take it to heart, but you can always ask the owner to go back and, hey, could you measure this for me? We missed it here, take a picture. More likely they'll help you out. It's not a big deal, but definitely recommend the design team to go field measure, not only the existing equipment, but some of their other counters, anything that the spaces that they used to have. And it's like, if they have 2 feet of reception desk, okay, well, we can give you 4 feet reception, and then they can understand it. So you're demonstrating to not only the doctor, but their existing team, practice manager, receptionist, their space needs and concerns.
Okay. So new equipment as well. What are some of the things or the process that we should go through from a design team to a construction team and the owner? What are some of the important steps as they order new equipment, sometimes well after the design is completed? How do we make sure that that stuff fits? And what is the lead time when they are ordering equipment? So tell us of how that all coordinates with the whole team.
Great question. Once you have an idea of the type of equipment you want in the space and everything's good, and we're talking about new equipment here. Equipment takes time to order and ship and fabricate. A lot of the times the dog runs could take up to 12 to 16 weeks. You want to make sure you have all those ordered and signed off on ahead of time and get that shipped enough time to install in the new facility. The last thing you want is a new facility to be at the grand opening and they don't have the dog runs in. So that should be on your agendas for your construction meetings and items of discussion for almost every meeting until they get ordered. You need to discuss colors, sizes, everything for that. Sign off with the owner, the contractor, and the design team to make sure that everything is suitable for the clients. After all that's done and ordered, then you get shop drawings from them. The timeline for the 12 to 16 weeks that I mentioned earlier does not start until the shop drawing sign-off phase between all parties. So you place the order, then they have to do their due diligence from either whatever company you ordered it from, and then they will send you shop drawings that delineates all your lengths, widths, colors, fabrications, all that, and it's your job as the design team to double check one last time all the widths, clearances, colors, everything.
So what I heard in there was the clock doesn't really start on that 12 to 16 week lead time.
Correct.
Or whatever the lead time is until everything is signed off and returned
Yes, sir.
to the equipment supplier.
Correct.
Most people hear that, think, well, we're 16 weeks out, we're fine. Well, then they start the process, and that may take several weeks. So, great point. One of the other things that I heard you talk about was flooring. How does flooring impact your equipment and your width of openings or anything else like that? What did you mean by that?
Flooring is a coordination item. Some of the equipment you want in before your final flooring comes down, some of the equipment you want after the fact. Usually your epoxy, if you do go with epoxy floor, is one of your last items that goes in for that before you do your move in. So you got to make sure that your equipment is delivered in time for that. However, if you order min-mark cabinets, base cabinets for example, a lot of the times you want bases built so those can sit on top of that, and when you can run your epoxy cove up that first and then have your equipment sit down, whether it's a min-mark cabinet or a dry table or a wet table, and then it all depends on the equipment coordination for that. A lot of times you want the epoxy base to float up to and give you that toe kick there. That needs to be done and coordinated prior to your equipment arriving. Otherwise, if your equipment arrives prior, then that equipment's just going to be stored somewhere before that happens, and that's a lot of big coordination between all parties. And by all parties, I mean the design team, so your architect, project manager on that side, your contractor, and your owner. Don't leave out your owner. Your owner's a big part of all the decisions, and they want to be aware of everything, what's going on.
So is there ever a width factor? Does the base come into play when you're designing a final opening for a bank of kennels or cages, or is there anything like that you have to consider?
If you're designing for example, if you're designing a opening for 10 foot of cages, a couple tier cages for that, it's not exactly 10 feet. You want to give it a couple inches on each side so you can have enough clearance to manipulate and put the cages inside of there. It's not going to be exactly 10 feet, otherwise it's not going to fit. A lot of those cages, sometimes they're off a little bit, 10 feet as well. There's not an even dimensions, off by fraction, so you got to leave that little extra space, so wiggle room to maneuver those cages in at the final ending.
Were there any other areas of concern with equipment, whether it's existing or new, that we want to emphasize to the owner, such as the importance of letting us review everything that they purchase, to whatever the other items that we might not have covered? Are there anything else is there anything else that you want to bring up before we close here today?
I would just say it's good communication between all parties, contractor, owner, architect. They work together as a team. as a team approach. So it's always nice to copy the whole team on it. So if the owner orders a piece of equipment that the architect isn't aware of and emails it to the contractor, the architect doesn't have the chance to back check and make sure we have the proper clearances or the proper utilities or any type of information of that nature. You want to work together as a team, so it's always good to keep the whole team in the loop. The exact same thing with the architect. The architect sends a review shop drawing back to Shoreline. You want to make sure you copy the owner and the contractor so they're fully aware of it. So it's good to include the whole team on communication so that way everybody's in the know. It really does help with coordination.
So have you ever seen a situation that the owner worked directly with the equipment supplier, and from their original design to what they ended up buying, the equipment designer might have sold them something different or explained why this new product might work better for them? Has there ever been a situation like that? Now it comes out to the site and no one coordinated that change?
That does happen more often than not, and you just have to work together as a team to figure out the best possible solution for the owner at that time. It does happen, and you just got to coordinate with the representative that sold the product and discuss with architect, contractor, and owner. Say what's your priorities and needs for this, and offer them the options of what we can do.
So with your relationship with all the vendors out there and equipment suppliers and everything, do you like to get involved during that project with those equipment suppliers for the owner, so that you and them are talking back and forth, not outside or around the owner, but with the owner on that, so that we are all developing all of the purchases and the design at the same time?
Correct, yeah, just to reiterate, it's just a team approach to make sure everybody's in the know and the understanding of what's going on and why. It's better off to have this as a collective design process rather than just a couple people here for this process, a couple people here for this. It's always good to, plus you establish that relationship with the vendors. It's a learning experience. There may be a new piece of equipment that we may not know about as the design team, and so it's a learning experience for us as well.
Well, very good. Thank you for taking a little bit of the time today. I know especially when there's design conferences coming up throughout now and the end of the year, and people are really getting excited about new projects. We hope we've given you a couple things to think about as you start to purchase equipment, maybe before your project even starts, and then the importance of having your team understand the equipment that you want to relocate. And you should start maybe marking that stuff down now, thinking about that kind of stuff, and so that you can make your design team and your builders aware of what has to be relocated. And then also connecting. That's what's nice about the trade shows. We've always encouraged our clients to get to these trade shows, touch, feel, and see the new equipment that they might want to be purchasing, and we want to do that during the design phase. We feel that's extremely important to help you make sure that all of that is designed in properly. So thank you for joining us this morning, and we hope that this was a little helpful takeaway for you in your future design.